Hi, okay, special video on request about dechroming. Although I have touched on it before, let's just do another dedicated video on the dechroming, which is not difficult at all. So this, I've just taken a bunch of parts, and I just forgot them inside. Not that it really matters. This is the bottle of toilet cleaning gel that I've been using at the moment, and there's no particular reason for me to be using the gel other than I just happen to have that. So bleach is what you're looking for to dechrome, and if you save yourself these pieces, you can sort of test the speed at which it dechromes various things. Now, all chrome is not created equal. Anyway, I'm just showing you what my little thing looks like. So what happens when the parts are sticking out of this? Well, that's sort of the slightly more handy thing about the gel, is that if I mix up the parts, and sometimes I'll lay this bottle, you know, right down at an angle, and then that means I can get a whole lot more wetting on the parts and the gel keeps it wet, or you just add more. I don't particularly want to have a jar half full of toilet gel, but and in fact this gel has lost a lot of its bleachiness, and I could just add some straight bleach into this to regenerate it, or just not even use the gel. While I'm on that, as I was taking the parts out, now obviously if you touch it with your hands, it's not the worst, but it's not the nicest either, so not recommended to be touching your hands with bleach, although when I'm doing washing on occasion, I am, you know, cleaning off a cloth that's in a bit of bleach water. Not ideal. Don't you know, don't get in the habit of doing it, as I'm sure you wouldn't anyway. So I've got sort of a long tweezers or some sort of spoke that I'm pulling my parts out with there, and then another little bowl of water, and try and get your part to drop in there, and don't mess bleach on yourself or anything else, otherwise you get lots of white spots on you. I put my parts into a plastic washing tub. Now that's the downside of the gel. Because the gel is sort of sticky, a whole bunch of parts coming out of it means it needs quite a number of rinsings. And when you are sort of rinsing your parts off and then you're tipping the water out, use another bowl, not over the drain, because a couple of times I've come close to losing small parts. And sometimes the small parts can get stuck to the big parts in the gel. So I'll sort of, you know, swirl it around, leave it for 3 days, swirl it around. Sometimes if you've got strong bleach, it'll clean off immediately. If I put this into there right now, a piece of this, you'll see no change because that's gone pretty weak. But in a week's time, it'll be clean. Now you see how shiny that is, by the way. So you can see that is a very high chrome compared to that one. I don't know if it's going to come across. It should come across adequately here. All platings are not chrome platings. That is sort of an aluminium plating, even though this is not meant to be an aluminium piece, but it's an aluminium look. It doesn't have that strength of chrome that is there. And on occasion, different kits, you can sort of tell, like this VW Beetle, you can tell that's the high chrome. Some of the motorbike kits have got two different types of plating, especially the 1/6 kits. They sort of commonly have a few different platings. These smaller kits, they just do one type of chroming. This is a thinner sort of plating and comes off a lot easier. These two pieces, I have no real reason to dechrome them, deplate them, because I would only need to spray the disc part of it, not the center part, a steel color, and the actual disc, depending on if that's getting a bit of color or something. Just spray a clear color right over that. For a model that you want to decide on what to dechrome and what not to, for instance, don't dechrome your headlights. You want them to be very reflective at the back. And the amount, that little thin ridge, this whole back section, you don't even see that's inside there. That little thin rim is about all you see, and then your lens goes on the front. So it's very nice to have that little well chromed headlight. You do, of course, need to scratch away with a knife on parts that you want to glue, because nothing is going to penetrate that chrome. Bumpers. Now, obviously, you were inquiring about a motorbike, but you know, somewhat of the same principle. I'm just, you know, talking through the analysis. If you want your car to be absolutely bright and shiny restored, well, then keep it like that. If you're building a more aged and well-used vehicle, then respray that in a darker chrome. As I've said, when I use the L-clads, if you spray that gloss black and then you spray the L-clad chrome, if you do a light coating, you get quite a nice aged chrome. Some of the little smaller caps and things you may choose not to do, or if you want to get rid of all the chrome, well, that's up to you. Stuff like mirrors, sometimes the mirror inside surface has been chromed for you, and sometimes it's separate from the outer holder of the mirror. If it's not, then it's usually too much chrome, and it gives you a little bit of a hassle to actually have a different colored outside and a chromed mirror surface. Now the last thing to speak about, and that's the parts that I forgot inside, and I should have done that, but on bright chrome, and this differs a little bit from kit manufacturer to kit manufacturer, the bright chrome has got at best I can call it a sort of a baked enamel undersurface. I don't know what they do to get it on there, which this one would not have on it. So the very shiny ones, when you dechrome it, depending on the color of the plastic, this is quite obvious on gray, silver and white plastics, you're going to see a bit of a yellowed white, if it was a white plastic, or a yellow coated silver, like on the parts that I've just taken out of here. And that's this sort of varnish layer. So you're not quite at the plastic yet. And that doesn't particularly matter. You can leave it there, but it slightly matters for gluing in the event that some of those areas, sometimes a connection point has been dechromed, but it still has the little varnish part, and that's sort of what these pieces are handy for. Go and dechrome it, even this very nice flat section, because it would be very obvious to you as you're taking your blade and scraping away after it's dechromed, and you'll see what I mean. You get a bit of a yellow varnish layer that is very, very, it adheres very well to the plastic and takes some scraping to get it off, or sanding. But you don't have to take it off. It's still a nice gloss surface. So it's a sort of a glossed varnish plastic, and it's only on your mating surfaces or any glue surface that you need to take that off. I have had, and I'm trying to remember, was that the International Scout? No, it was, I think it was some of the truck parts that I was trying to clean, which I still haven't built. But there are cases where the type of chrome that they've given you, and that's generally not Tamiya, I've never had it on a Tamiya, you put it in bleach and it's just nothing happens to it for a long time. It could be that even over the chrome layer that there's a further coating, or it's a different type of chrome or something that doesn't actually react with the bleach in the same way. And I think what I did there was just leave it in for ages and ages. I mean, nothing's going to happen to your plastic parts being in there. You can increase the strength of your bleach a little bit in the bottle. This is sort of virtually at the end of its life now. I'll actually probably use that in the toilet and get myself a bit of fresh bleach water. I suppose it's actually handy, I'm just thinking about it, with that coloration, so that it's quite obvious to you what's in the bottle. Otherwise, definitely label your bottles and keep it on a top shelf. But that at least alerts you to what you've got in there. Well, at least for me, because I've got nothing else in the house that's that color. And yes, so I've just taken out some motorbike exhausts, which were just way too shiny. But as you'll see when I take the photos of the final build of my motorbikes, there is one that I left it just like that. It does mean that your little connection point to the tree is still, you have to just cut it off carefully and not damage your chrome and glue it, as opposed to a fully painted part which you wouldn't have that little connection. You could touch it slightly with silver, but it's hardly worth it. Silver stands out against chrome as much as anything else. When you have the variety of bikes lined up, it is nice to have one that's in the high chrome. But if you built all of your models, all of your cars, just with the high chrome parts, it very much looks a bit toy-like. But when you've got a variety, you know, then it does stand out as, oh, that looks like a well restored vehicle, or a brand new motorbike with absolutely top quality shined metal parts. I think that covers it all. And as I say, not difficult, a little bit of finger mess. It's handy if you've got, depending on the size of the bottle. The only reason I use a bottle that's this long is because some of my exhaust pieces are a bit over half of this bottle, I suppose. But you could use a shorter bottle, which then makes it easier to get parts out if you've got a sort of a long tweezers or something. I was using a bicycle spoke on some of the parts. Yeah, like that. So it's got that little hook on the end that sort of helps me get it out of there and just drop it into the water without touching my hands on it too much. Okay, hope that helps. Cheers.